Well, if you're going to do a job, you got to do it right. You got to do all of it, you know. So, Commander asked me if I wanted to take over chaplain duties for the rest of the year, and I said, sure, I'll take them over. They nominated me for chaplain. It was 2007. They don't even nominate me anymore. They just put my name in. I've been chaplain for 20 years chaplain.
Jack Stone says it almost like a rule. What makes it remarkable is how many different jobs that rule has carried him through. 20 years in the United States Navy, nearly 2 decades honoring veterans at Post 440. From Veterans Voices of Newton, this is Do the Whole Job.
First, my name is John Stone. I was born February 26, 1940. I was the fourth child of Mary and Thomas Stone, fourth of 8. Normal growing up in an Irish household. Graduated from high school in 1958. I knew what I was going to do. I knew I was going to join the Navy. As far as making it a career, because I served 20 years, that came later. I wanted to travel. And even in the United States, I wanted to travel. The Navy, they travel from place to place to place. So the first ship they set me on, nowhere to travel to, no place. It stayed in port. 2 years in that. 3 days in New York and 3 days in Fort Lauderdale. I saw it in the back of my mind saying thanks to the country for taking my grandfather and my grandmother in. Both grandparents they were all from Ireland, and they all immigrated around 1900. The country gave them an opportunity. Well, and also, I thought when I went in, I would make my mother and father proud, you know.
Before the Navy, Jack had already stumbled into the trade that would follow him for most of his working life.
When I graduated from high school, so I went out looking for another job. At the time, if you lived around this area, you worked at Raytheon. I think I was there about a year. So one day they come down and they said, we're going to have a layoff. That afternoon, about 2 o'clock, another guy comes over, says to me, he says, you're bumped. I got laid off twice in the same day. But I didn't go to a stockroom. I went to a tool room in a small machine shop. So once I got in the machine shop, in the tool room, I didn't know any of the tools, any of the precision tools. So the guys that worked there, the supervisor was kind of a front show guy. But the other guys were all young, and they helped me out identifying and showing me how the tools worked and all that stuff. So eventually I got in the machine shop and worked my way up from there. So I joined the Navy in November 17th, 1959. Basically, it was a 12-week boot camp that I think I could have done it in 4 or 6 because some of the things they taught you, they taught me how to sew, and I already knew how to do that because my mother told me that. With 8 kids, if I wanted something sewn or something ironed or something washed, I had to do it myself. I didn't mind taking orders because I took orders all my life, you know. At home, in school, eventually you get high enough and you start to give orders, but it took a few years. In 1961, I got a chance to get transferred to another ship. I went to the USS Valley Forge. January 6th, I believe, 1962. We left Norfolk, Virginia. 5 or 6 days later, we were at the entrance to the Panama Canal. We went through the canal the next day. We were the second largest ship at the time to go through the Panama Canal. We barely fit in the lock. It took us 8 hours to transit the canal, and they asked anybody who had a shot for yellow fever. They forgot to give the crew a yellow fever shot. And there was only 67 out of over 1,200 that had a yellow fever shot. So we were the only ones to get liberty. I took my first discharge after 4 years. I stayed out approximately 25 days. Found out there was no jobs, and I was better off in the Navy, so I went back in the Navy.
Jack left the Navy once. It lasted about 25 days.
Signed a ship in Newport, Rhode Island. USS Cascade. First couple of years was normal, and then in, I believe it's 1966, the Air Force had lost 4 nuclear weapons. 3 of them landed on land, and 1 ended up in the sea. The ship was the primary repair facility for the recovery of the nuclear weapon that was submerged. We were gone, I believe, 78 or 80 days.
Jack remembers the Cascade supporting an underwater recovery operation involving a lost nuclear weapon. Then came orders for Vietnam.
Then I got my orders for Vietnam to a LST, which is a landing ship tank. It had been converted to a small boat repair. It was working the rivers in South Vietnam in 4th Corps. So we worked mainly with PBRs, repairing them, feed the crew. We were assigned different rivers. We call them stations. So you were assigned a certain station. Every night you would move from one station to another, change stations for safety reasons. December of 1968, we went back to Vietnam. So we were assigned to make a transit every day up to this bridge at a village called Ben Luck. We would leave in the morning, go upriver, spend a day there. At night, we would go back downriver. On the way back, one night, they shot some rockets at us, but they missed.
Moving each night had been part of staying safe. Then the safer choice became staying put, and the dry season lowered the river.
So we got up to Ben Luck. We anchored. That was in December 1968. The dry season was just coming in, but with the dry season, the river dropped. And we couldn't turn around because the river dropped, put us almost on the bottom. They didn't know this, and we were landlocked. Stayed landlocked till April 1st of 1969 for 140 days.
When I later asked for one day that captured those months, Jack gave a date.
Well, it was probably March 15th, 1969. We had been sitting landlocked for about 3 months. Then, like I say, we were getting small arms fire, not every night, but often enough. And we had intelligence on what the VC were going to do. So they had us at general quarters overnight. So half the crew, half would sleep and half would stay awake. I was sleeping. That was my turn to sleep, so I was sleeping. Some guy went to the supervisor, come wake me up, says, "Get up." I said, "What happened?" He says, "We got hit." He says, "Where?" He says, "In the wardroom." And the wardroom was a battle dressing station where they took care of the wounded. So both our corpsmen were in the wardroom, and both of them got wounded. And there was, I believe, 2 civilians on the ship at the time, and they got killed. They shot a rocket. It went through the skin of the ship, which was only a 1/4 inch steel, and luckily it hit an air conditioner. We had a 15-ton air conditioner back in the 60s, about as big as a refrigerator. It had a double charge. The first charge would break through the skin of the ship, and the second charge would explode inside. When it went through the skin of the ship into the air conditioner, exploded, so there wasn't that much damage, luckily.
For months, danger did not always mean firing back. Jack remembers the ship sitting beside a populated village where careless return fire could hit the people around them.
We had small arms fire all the time. They would try to encourage us or to get us to return fire because we were basically in the middle of a village that was divided by the river. So if we fired into the village, it would have created an incident where we were shooting into the villages of the people, and we didn't want to do that.
But 140 days cannot remain at battle stations. Even in a dangerous place, people still have to make a life.
So I talked to the captain one night. I says, "Let me go over and try." She said, "Okay, go over tomorrow afternoon." So I went over, and I sat down with the mama son there, and I ordered a beer. The kids coming around, so you play with the kids, and some guy was coming around with candy bars, so I bought a bunch of candy bars to give candies to the kids. bleach sweep with the mama son and everything else. So I did that for about, must have been an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I said, mama son, I got to go. I need 3 blocks of ice. So I took the money out, laid the money out on the table. She looked at me, she looked at the ice, she looked at the money, grabbed the money. So I come back to the ship with ice. And we're going to have cold beer that night. We haven't had cold beer in, I'm not going to say months, but it's been, it's a couple of weeks anyways. I was a hero for this day. So that became, so the captain says, that's your job every afternoon. We got word one day that Admiral Zumwalt was coming down. He was, at the time, he was the top sailor in Vietnam. His helicopter come in, so all the officers were lined up on one side. He gets out the other side of the helicopter and come over to us, How you guys doing, everything else, and shaking hands, and hey, you guys get everything you need, you need anything. And this one young guy says, we could use some beer. I was like, kill this guy, So next day, tractor trailer comes down to the riverbank and drops off 5 pallets of beer, 80 cases to a pallet. That's 400 cases of beer. By that time, I'm getting the ice, and I got the beer, so I'm running the bar. It was hazardous there during that 140 days and nights, but it was good too. It was some good times. Looking back, it wasn't as bad as it probably could have been. It was Easter Sunday, 1970. I returned to the States. I went to the USS Jason out of San Diego. Made 2 more trips to the Western Pacific. By that time, I had 17 or 18 years in the Navy. I finished my tour in May of 1979.
Civilian life required a reversal. After years of moving up through a chain of command, he had to learn how to be one employee among many.
The biggest change was going from in charge of a group of people to being part of a group of people, going from giving orders to taking orders. You had to learn to hold your tongue, instead of questioning, especially in a group. Every job once I get in, I don't want to get out. It has to be a lot of circumstances to make me move on, because once I get in there and I get involved, I just can't change a couple of years. But I had a good life.
That same instinct to stay, learn the place, and take responsibility followed him to Newton and eventually to Post 440.
When I bought my house in 1982, I took a part-time job at Mass Hardware. Tom Shoemaker, who's also a member here, and he found out I was a veteran. So every time I get down where he worked, he would chase me around trying to get me to join. And that's how I got hooked up in the post. See, I joined in 82, and selfish reasons. See, I only worked 2 blocks down the street. And at lunchtime, they used to serve lunch down here. On Friday, we'd always come down here and have a couple of beers and have a sandwich. And then I started actually look around and start doing some of meeting the people, seeing what was going on. And I noticed that they were getting old and they were dying off and everything else. And there was one guy, Oscar LaRossi. So he asked me when I was going to get involved. I says, what do you mean? He says, we're not getting any younger. I says, I noticed that. But I said, the people in power don't want to relinquish it. He says, eventually they'll have to because it'll be dead. I said, okay. But I am watching, I am paying attention. And then it happened. They just all started to die off. There was nobody else to step up and do the job.
Jack eventually served as post commander, but the role that lasted began when a friend died.
In 2007, a friend of mine had passed away that I worked with, and we didn't have a chaplain. So I asked the commander if I could do his service. We do a wake service. Normally at a wake, sometimes we can do it at graveside. I've done them in auditoriums. I go to any house of worship. I've been to synagogues, Protestant churches. I was born and grew up a Catholic, so it doesn't bother me to go to another house of worship. Show respect for the veteran. Commander asked me if I wanted to take over chaplain duties for the rest of the year, and I said, sure, I'll take them over. They nominated me for chaplain. They don't even nominate me anymore. They just put my name in. Well, there's certain things that happen, things that stick in your mind, and you just can't get them out.
After decades of machining parts, repairing equipment, supporting sailors, and honoring veterans, Jack sees one more job that needs doing: preserving what individual people actually remember.
It's something that has to be done. The people that were in the World War II in Korea, I don't think there was enough documentation. There was enough movies and films and stuff, but I don't think there was personal documentation. And everybody comes out of the service with a different point.
I'll tell you what, Mr. Stone, I don't want to have to make you wait much longer. I just want to reiterate, it's just been great.
Oh, I've been practicing this for years.
Practicing? What do you mean by practicing?
Putting it all together, memorizing and remembering and everything else.
Jack's story isn't really about one dramatic day, one ship, or one war. It's about a habit. Learn the job, stay with it, and when responsibility lands in front of you, do the whole thing.
Well, if you're going to do a job, you're going to do it right. You're going to do all of it, Yeah, it's better being a living legend than a dead legend.
Jack Stone served 20 years in the United States Navy, retiring in 1979. His service included technical and repair work aboard multiple ships and duty in Vietnam supporting Navy river operations. After settling in Newton, he became active at American Legion Post 440, where he later served as commander and has spent nearly 2 decades as chaplain. Thank you for listening to Veterans Voices of Newton. I'm Ethan Lee. And to Mr. Stone, thank you for your service and for continuing to show up when there is a job that needs doing. To hear more stories, visit veteransvoicesofnewton.org.